Thanks for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. Here are your hosts, Andrew Hofer and Tom Sigel.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome into episode 9 of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. My name is Andrew Hofer. I'm the area director of Three Rivers FCA, joined by Tom Sigel, an ambassador for FCA, and we're just so happy you guys could be here with us today, and hope you had a great Thanksgiving and a little bit of time off and some fun and relaxing time with your family. So welcome in.
Yeah, post-Thanksgiving episode here, and kind of stuck with us on this one, but we're gonna wing it. We've been talking about being able to touch on a couple different possible topics of just us kind of running with it if we need be. So here we are, right, Andrew?
Yeah. So this is going to be a little bit unique, a little bit different format this week. As Tom and I are flying solo here a little bit, and one of the topics that we've been talking about with our staff at our coaches Bible study with coaches really all around the region and state is growth. That word growth, and talking about it from a coaching perspective and a spiritual perspective. But growth is something that I think is kind of neglected sometimes in the current situation with coaches around the country, and something that I know that you and I had some hard lessons to learn through.
Yeah, exactly. And the last couple of coaches huddles we've talked about with coming off of our last or two of our recent podcasts with assistant coaches and then as head coaches, and we touched on some of those things that we learned when we became a head coach, and so we had a lot of good discussion there. And so yeah, I think that we do have other guests that were lining up. It didn't fit in the schedule this week, but we're going to have them on. But for this week, yeah, you're with us, and not that we have a lot of expert opinion, but sharing some experiences, like you said, that we learned from young coaches when we thought we knew a lot more than we really did. Kind of like they say about teenagers, they know more than their parents if you ask them.
Yeah, I asked my 12-year-olds that now, they would probably say the same thing. But
Yeah,
so getting into this and diving into this topic a little bit, I told you a little bit off air. So when I was an assistant coach at Deer Creek Mackinac, was getting ready for my first head football job up at Polo High School. I remember going up there, and I was this is something that I regret, but I thought I knew significantly more than I actually did. And so there were, it was one of those situations where I got up there, you get involved in it. And I don't remember like which game exactly it was into my first year as a head coach, but I remember thinking, I don't know nearly as much as I thought I did. I've got a lot to learn. And so sometimes that season I was learning through some moments, but it was learning that, hey, I didn't have the knowledge base that I needed in a lot of areas within coaching. I had to go do more to be able to gain that. Otherwise, it was going to be a dramatic failure when it came to helping lead that program.
yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think some different experiences before becoming a head coach, and one was coming out of college where I thought I knew basketball and really focused on X's and O's. Like, okay, what are we running? Taking it from Barry Swanson was head coach at Galesburg, and I was at Churchill, the Blue Streaks, coaching seventh grade, and was really like, okay, I want to know what the offense is and all this stuff. And one thing that hit me was we were going to play man to man, and I realized, like, well, I know how to play man to man and this and that, but realizing all of a sudden I have to teach that. Well, you teach it through breaking things down and running drills and that. But I just remember that moment thinking, well, I don't know how to teach it. I know, what I'm doing. And then the other one would have been probably as a sophomore coach. I got a really good, talented group, and we went 20-1. And like you said, you think, boy, I'm ready for whatever. Um, and then the next year, I think we won 5 or 6 games, and then I went to Rock Falls in the first year as a head coach and went 7-19, and all of a sudden, definitely found out I was humbled, and there's a lot more to this coaching thing than just showing up and drawing up plays and sending them out on the court ready to go. So
Yeah, I think that's
definitely a lot of growth to be had there.
I think that's one of the fun, like, part of, like, one of the common misconceptions within coaching is that, hey, it's all about the X's and O's, and I think those are important. Like, I don't want
Hmm.
to underestimate and downplay the role that X's and O's go or do, and also the fact that how you teach that and what you're able to get the athletes that you're working with to comprehend how that matters. But at the same time, I think one of the things you learn very quickly as a head coach is that X's and O's and schemes and all that, they're just a fraction of what's going on, a fraction of what you have to learn. And when you come into a coaching position, whether you're going to be an assistant or a head coach, it doesn't matter. Uh, there's so much more to learn than just the X's and O's. And when you're young and coming into it for the first time, you want to be able to prove your knowledge of whatever sport that you're coaching. So I think that's
Hmm.
where the emphasis on schematics comes in. But the fact is that schematics are almost secondary in a lot of ways for many aspects within coaching.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, that it's about teaching it. You know, I think that you look at things and obviously more focused on basketball, but I'm sure in your field, football and whatever sport, everybody should have good X's and O's now. You can find them everywhere. Go on YouTube. There's reels out there, and you could always order tapes and DVDs, and I did that. But having that knowledge and getting the players to do it are two totally different things. And that's where I think that it is tough nowadays. The old generation of coaches talk about, younger coaches. Oh, I got these drills online and I'm going to just put them in. I got this offense from somewhere, and they don't go to clinics and really study and how to implement them. And so that was one thing I learned, I think, was the teaching aspect, making that connection with kids. It's kind of like in the classroom, hearing about teachers, they present something one way and expect kids to learn it. And I always said, well, in coaching, you learn real quick if you want to win. Well, we're going to show you. We're going to have you do it. We're going to show you on film. We're going to break it down. Some of them learn from the playbook. Some of them don't. They need to see it visually. And so you start doing that. And along the same lines, that I think that when you talk about, well, I'm just going to find all this stuff online, is I learned real quick too to ask. And that's tough as a young coach to, well, how do I do this? Especially a young head coach, because now you're supposed to be in charge. And I think that that's a trait that I had to learn to, okay, I'm the head coach, but I'm going to ask, whether it be a mentor, ask another coach, go email a college coach and ask them, and just start asking for advice. And I think that's tough to do because it makes you feel like maybe you're vulnerable, and you're really not. I mean, I think that's that growth mindset. How do I learn? And you have to ask to do that.
Yeah, it's it's in a way it's admitting weakness,
Hmm.
which when we have something that's considered a weakness, we want to hide it. We don't want people to know, And so when you go and you do that, and we're going to talk more about like how did we overcome, how did we learn and grow in a little bit, but like when you have those weaknesses, we don't want to admit it, and it takes a definite level of maturity to admit I don't know,
Hmm.
but also another level of maturity to say I don't know, but I'm going to go figure it out. I'm going to go learn. I'm going to go ask people who do know. And so I appreciated you bringing up the teaching aspect of things because we had a coach's study this morning. It was Alex Johnson, the head coach at Sherrard for their boys basketball team. He mentioned, sometimes we have the temptation to yell at our kids like, "Hey, we've gone over this 100 times and we're still not doing it." I think when he said that, I was like, "Man, we've all been there," and it's
Hmm.
really easy to point the finger at someone else, but it's like, hey, maybe we are not down the right path when it comes to how we're communicating what's going
Hmm.
on, and when it comes to teaching what's going on, whether that might be an X's and O's or it might be something to do with the culture of the program that you're helping to lead.
Exactly. And a lot of times looking in the mirror, I remember the saying, if somebody came and watched your practice, and if there is, good habits, bad habits that they're seeing that stands out, then you're either coaching those things or you're allowing them.
Mm.
And so if there are bad things happening or you're seeing it repetitively on the court or on the field, that's something that's really humbling, and thinking, well, what we're doing isn't working, or if we're committed to it, then how do we make it better? And it's not always the player's fault all the time. So we have to figure out how to get them to do it.
Yeah, and what's the old saying? Like the first step to overcoming a problem is admitting that you have a problem.
Hmm.
So we talked about like the fact that as you're coming up, most of us are not God's gift to coaching, and even you fast forward years down the road, we always have something to learn. So, what are some ways that you were able to grow as a coach here over time from being a younger coach to maturing and becoming a very successful head coach down in the later years of your coaching?
Um, yeah, and that's the thing too, is we're not supposed to be refined. I mean, when we start, I mean, college coaches, pro coaches, you've seen how they've grown. Maybe you can see it based on their record. Get fired at one place and then go somewhere and prove themselves. And so I think that's the thing. Looking back, there are a lot of things if you have that mindset. Um, I would say one thing that comes up, that I when we talked about coming up with some ideas, I put down honesty. And part of that is being honest with yourself and being who you are. Don't try to be the model of whatever hot coach is out there at this time. And I think each sport has had them that a lot of young coaches have tried to be, and that's fine. But be who you are. And um, I think whether that be, hey, I'm not a yeller, and people expect me to be, um, if that's what's going to be successful. I know some coaches are more bold in their faith out there. Some maybe have strong faith, but don't show it as much. Whatever it may be, maybe you are a little more fiery and you wear your emotions on your sleeve. Maybe you have to control it, but be who you are. And then the other part of that too is just to be honest with players, and that can really be tough, I think, as a young coach. Whether I decided that I wanted to do, anytime that we had our cuts, to do them in person, call every kid in, and hey, you made the team, here's your role. You're going to be expected to shoot 10 times a game or whatever. Or basically you're going to be a practice player, or those really tough ones where we just have guys that are better and you didn't make the team. But I think as I grew older and players came back and had some interesting interactions in different settings, where they came back and I appreciate you being honest with me. I didn't agree with you, and it was tough, but when you had to tell me, had those tough conversations. And so I think that's one thing as a young coach. And I think in this era, talking about, well, you got to have relationships with players. You got to be, I think the message that comes through is to coddle them a little bit. Don't hurt their feelings. We're in this kind of era, but in all honesty, I think that it's always been about relationships. I mean, but the relationship wasn't friends and buddy buddy. It was coach player, and I think that those are the things that through experiences that I learned to just, hey, tell them up front if why they're not playing. Don't try to sugarcoat things, and that's tough to do.
Well, and real relationship allows for better levels of accountability, which we talked about the last couple episodes. So we had talked about it more from coach to coach perspective, but it goes the same way with the coach to student communications. And when you have real relationship, it allows for honest communication. It allows for you to have those conversations that are difficult sometimes, and it really opens up the way that you're able to again communicate back and forth with the other student athletes and with your coaching staff.
Yeah, And I think that, there were times as my career went on where I would stand up on Monday afternoon at practice or even after the game and say, "Hey, whatever the game plan we had didn't work. That's on the coaches. That's on us." And being able to admit that we messed up or, "Hey, I kinda blew up on you guys yesterday and was inappropriate, and can't do that. I apologize." Um, those are things that as a young coach, like you said, that insecurity is really tough to do, but I think that the players respect that if you're upfront with them and genuine.
Yeah, and the players are much more intuitive than I think we give them credit for. Like, if you don't know what you're talking about in any area, you're gonna get found real quick. And so, like whether, I mean, it's true. Like whether it's something that you do as a coach or the students are like, wait a minute, as you're going through whatever it might be, like you're gonna get found out. And so I think you go back to that teaching piece of it. Like you got to be honest and open with it. And part of that is like for you as a coach, you need to go and do the research and the work that it takes to be able to communicate with your student athletes. Again, whether it's culture pieces or X's and O's, you've got to be able to learn it and know it and communicate it in a way that resonates with the athletes that you're working in are working with. One of the things that really helped me to grow as a coach was going to talk with other coaches. And it's not something that I don't think it's something that is actively done a lot anymore because there's so much access to video. There's so much
Mhm.
access to online content. But if I wanted to learn something, I tried to find people who knew what I wanted to learn or who I could see were already doing it. And I tried to go meet with them and talk with them so that I could learn it and then be able to communicate and implement that better within the program that I was serving at the time. And so I think it's almost a little bit of a lost art with the way that communication has transitioned. But I would encourage coaches at any level, like if you want to be able to communicate better, find the people who have done it, find the people who are doing it successfully, and go learn from them. And because every coach that I asked to learn something, and I asked a coach about they had like a team handbook, and so I just wanted to know more about that and their culture and how they implemented it and how they used it. And I went and met with him. Like, we sat down in his
Mhm.
office and we went over it for a couple hours. I'm sure you've gone to places where schematics are going over different videos or different techniques or schemes. Like coaches are willing to help other coaches, and I think that there's no shortage of people out there that are willing to help. But it takes you making that step of saying, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I need help. And now I'm going to reach out and say, and let someone else in on the secret that I don't know what I'm doing here. And I need to learn this. And I want to continue to grow in what I'm doing."
Yeah. And, Evan Massey, who I got to know when I was at Galesburg and over 1,000 wins, as a girls basketball coach there, would call, would text, and I know other coaches have said the same thing. I mean, throughout his whole career, multiple state appearances, and he was always looking for, "How do we do this better? What do you do again in this situation?" And, I mean, I think that's a tremendous example. Like you said, videos, whether and I'm not bashing on trainers out there, but, even coaches, you get, "Oh, I got this drill, this video, um, player development." Well, you still have to teach the players how to do it. Um, if there's nobody teaching them, then why are they paying you? Because they could watch the video. The parent can find the same video and find a gym and, "Hey, go do this drill, for an hour and you're going to get better." Well, not necessarily because you've done it wrong for an hour. So yes, like you said, is you can find this stuff, but okay, this blocking tech, we're on this play, you do this block, but what technique do you teach this guard or whatever? Look at me showing some football now, throwing out terms like I know I'm talking about. But yes, how do you? And like you said, when you have those conversations, really get that knowledge, you're like, oh wow, the light bulb starts to come on. Like, this is why they do it better than everybody else. And I want to learn. I want to know.
Yeah.
So
And you kind of see it like transitioning a little bit when it comes to our own faith, because I think our faith is the same way where you're either growing or you're going the opposite direction. You're not really staying stagnant. And so, like, I always, this will sound cliche, but I've always pictured like Jesus as the head coach and his disciples as the assistants, and so they were learning from him, they were growing from him as they were on that journey. And so I think our faith for us as coaches too is in a lot of ways like our coaching journeys, where when we're younger and immature in our faith, it takes longer, like it takes time for us to grow. And then how do you do that? And in a lot of ways, that's very similar to how we grew as coaches.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I still feel like, the amateur in the room sometimes when I'm around some real strong Christians and I don't know, pull up scripture or somebody says, what verse, and they know it, or, other people do, or even praying in front of others, but, kind of been able to learn and grow through that, just as time's gone on. So yes, definitely agree with that. And I would be guilty of, if I don't feel as confident going into a practice, that being more willing to go research that knowledge than not feeling comfortable in a Bible study setting. I've definitely been guilty of that
Yeah.
too.
I'm thankful for people who've pushed me in my faith, because I agree. Like, there was a time where it's like, well, man, I can teach how to run buck sweep out of 100 different formations, but I can't recite whatever passage it might be in the Bible, or uh, I can't keep up a routine. I'm not able to put it in enough time to at least find 10 minutes of prayer time or quiet time during the day. And so, like, I'm thankful for people who have pushed me and held me accountable and said, "Hey, just like in coaching, like where you wanted to learn, you had to communicate and you had to get pushed to go and figure out, like, am I going to teach this? How does this work?" I think the same goes with us in our faith, is that if we want to continue to grow, we've got to dive into the Bible. We've got to learn through our relationship with Christ, and then also have others around us that are able to push us, are able to hold us accountable, are able to pour into us, because again, it's admitting, hey, I don't know everything. As a matter of fact, I'm very far away from that and I need help. And
Hmm.
so we encounter that every day, where we'll have students who will ask us questions about their spiritual journeys or about life, because the students that we're serving and the coaches that we're serving are going through so many different things. And sometimes they'll ask us questions that we don't know the answer to. And we have to say, hey, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to go talk to people who can pour into us and help us. And so we can communicate back to them. And so that allows us to continue to grow too.
Definitely, definitely.
So it's a,
And
go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, and there's and this might twist back into some of the coaching things that we learned in our careers, but that uncomfortable, being in a
Yeah.
situation where you're uncomfortable, that's what you're saying, because if somebody challenges you, um, you're uneasy and you feel that.
Yeah. Like 5 years ago, being in coaching and being in administration, like, you talk in front of people consistently. But 5 years ago, if someone would have told me, hey, you're going to be doing speaking in front of hundreds of people at various events or churches, like, I would have told you you're nuts. Like, that is not that's not something that I would be comfortable with. And, I think God challenges us, and this helps in our growth by pulling us out of our comfort zones, putting us in situations that force us to think, that force us to act, that force us to learn, which helps with our growth as a person and helps with our spiritual growth as a whole.
Definitely. I mean, I think, and that's, again, kind of shifting it back, but that's one thing that um, I learned when we talk about relationships with kids these days, and that it might be different than when we played. I totally get that. But being able to challenge them in different ways is preparing them. And I think, the young coach, maybe even a little bit different in this era, is, well, be concerned with their well-being, Does that mean don't yell at them? Does that mean don't challenge them? No, they are going to face those struggles, like you were just alluding to, totally different than sports, and that's what life brings them. I think when COVID came up, we had some conversations with our players that, hey, it's just my prediction, but the world's going to go back to the way the world is, and the ways that schools had to adapt is not necessarily going to prepare them if we stick with that forever. And so, but I think in sports, being able to push them and challenge them, make them uncomfortable. Maybe that is, I know football scheduling is a lot different than basketball scheduling, but that, I was always willing. It kind of ties into, as a young coach, winning, how important winning was, and our records. And I'm not discounting that because I'm still competitive, fantasy football and other things,
Uh,
golf scores, whatever. Um, and so that's a good thing. But um, the winning part is, you can win at youth sports doing things wrong and teaching them wrong things and winning.
we
And if
see that
that's
all
what
the
it's
time.
about, then yes, you're totally missing the boat. I think that we always tried to model ourselves out after some of the successful college programs and other high school programs. Play as many tough teams as you can. You can take some losses if you want. I mean, teams play so many games these days. You can win 20 games, but a lot of different ways. But let's see where we're at. Hey, we played a team, whatever, and they smacked us in the mouth, and we learned something from it because we're going to get better. And so those challenges, I think, help all of us, in life and down the road. And so I think that's one thing I learned too is um, to try to get players to take on those rather than that, we want to feel good about ourselves all the time because it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, you're challenging them, and that's so coach speak. But I do that often. So I just did a sermon on Sunday at one of the local churches, and I usually end with some sort of challenge or conviction that goes along with it. And as we
That's
get ready
awesome.
as we, that's just what we do, right? So, but as as we get ready to close, like I'd love to be an encouragement, a challenge to not only our coaches but our athletes to continue to have that growth mentality in a lot of different ways in their in how that they coach or how they play as an athlete. Again, I mentioned earlier, like you're not really staying stagnant in whatever role you might be in. You're either growing or you are decreasing. And so I would just encourage coaches to continue to not only grow in their profession through different communications, through relationships, through continuing education, but continue to grow spiritually and to actively take time to make that a part of who they are, a part of their program. And I know it looks a little bit different everywhere you're at, but it takes intentionality. And you mentioned earlier, like coaches allow what they want to allow. Like, and if it's going on in your program, you're allowing it. The same goes with your life. If it's going on in your life, you're allowing it to take place. Like, do the things that it takes to grow. Like, find someone to be a mentor or accountability partner. Take time to get into the Word, to find some quiet time, especially in season. Especially in season. I can't emphasize that enough. We've talked in our coach's Bible study how many times where it's like, man, I wish I had this when I was a younger coach, or I wish I would have known dot dot dot. Like, take time. It's okay.
hmm Well, we
Uh,
talked off air. One of the things that we've learned was work smarter, not harder. And that was basically time management. And especially now with Huddle, different formats to, well, watch more film, watch more film, watch more. And believe me, the successful people do work really hard at what they're doing, but trying to maybe not fill up as much practice time. Can we get more done in a shorter amount of time? And can I make more time for family in the evenings if I just manage time better, and whether it be um, prayer time or getting in the Word or whatever it might be. I think You see those examples of those NFL coaches sleeping in their office and, getting 3 hours of sleep. John Gruden, of course, he could do it. But I think that's one way, like you're saying, to manage time, make it intentional. And it's not all about just the hours.
Well, we live
It's
in
what type of work are you putting in?
we live in such a busy paced world. Like if you want to fill your calendar and fill up every waking second of the day, you will. There's plenty of stuff to do that. And we
I'm busy and I'm retired now, not coaching.
right.
So yes, you can.
We fill our life with whatever, like with what we prioritize. And I would encourage coaches to prioritize it with the right stuff, because it's really easy to be intentional about prioritizing with things that ultimately don't matter, that ultimately are going to lead us nowhere on the court, on the field, and going to lead us nowhere in our own lives. And it's very easy to fall into that trap. And if you we could go down that path all day if you want to, but you have to be intentional. You have to find that time and you have to prioritize it. And so I know a couple things, like I set an alarm on my phone every day. And if I don't do it in the morning early, it's not going to get done for me. That's when I have my quiet time. That's when I have my prayer time. And that's what works. And I know I can be consistent with that. Find that time where you can be consistent and to help continue growing.
Yeah. And for assistant coaches who might be listening, because we kind of we do get a few people that join in. So hopefully after this episode again. But for any assistant coaches, I think what's tough there is sometimes that depends on the head coach that you're working for. Sometimes they demand those hours, and you really kind of have to do your job and try to work it out the best you can. And it may be something that, again, you learn that, hey, when I'm a head coach or I get something, I'm going to manage this better, or I'm going to understand that for my assistants.
Well, and you might even learn, hey, this isn't the right program for me, and
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing to admit, but when you go in with intentionality and you're grounded in your faith and you're grounded in who you are and who you were really created to be, that changes your whole perspective on not only coaching, but your whole perspective on what you're prioritizing in life.
Definitely.
So, well, as we close here, just want to encourage everyone that we've got our coaches Bible study on Thursday mornings, meeting in person in Milan at 6:30 at the Welcome Inn. So we'd love to have you either in person, or we do have people joining us via Zoom. And then if there are any coaches or athletes listening to this that would like to start a huddle or Bible study at their local school or in their local community, please reach out to us. I know our emails are in here, and we would love to connect with you guys and help pour out into you guys and be able to support you guys in getting those going. So it's been a pleasure, Tom. And so looking forward to getting back to our guest next week, but glad you guys could take some time with us to listen to us talk about a growth mindset within coaching and within our own spiritual lives.
Definitely. And like I said, we're like you mentioned, we're excited for some guests we have lined up. We'll get them scheduled, and future episodes that we have coming up. But until then, wishing everybody a great holiday season, and we'll see you next time on Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.
Thanks for watching this episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. If you have ideas for content or interview suggestions, just reach out to Tom or Andrew. Thanks again for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.